The ships appeared on a Tuesday morning, hanging in the sky above every major city on Earth. They were beautiful in a strange way, like massive crystals that caught the sunlight and scattered it into rainbow patterns. People stopped their cars, left their offices, and stood in the streets, staring upward with open mouths. Yang was in his office at the United Nations building when the alerts started flooding in. As the chief scientific advisor, he was one of the first people the world leaders called. His phone rang constantly for 3 hours straight. Everyone wanted answers, but he had none to give. The ships just floated there, silent and waiting. On the fourth hour, they finally spoke. The message came through every communication device on the planet at once. Televisions, radios, phones, computers, all of them broadcast the same calm voice. It spoke in every language, perfectly translated, as if the aliens had studied humanity for years. "People of Earth," the voice said, we come in peace and we bring a gift." Yang grabbed his coat and rushed to the emergency meeting room. Military officials, scientists, and diplomats from around the world were already gathering, their faces a mix of fear and excitement. Park was there too, standing near the wall with her arms crossed. She was the head of military strategy, and she looked suspicious already. "This could be a trick," said, her voice cutting through the nervous chatter in the room. "We know nothing about them." "Or it could be the greatest moment in human history," someone else argued. They requested a meeting with Earth's leaders. They asked to land a single ship in Geneva, Switzerland, in neutral territory. After hours of debate and argument, the world governments agreed. What choice did they have? The aliens were already here. 3 days later, Yang stood on the landing field with dozens of other representatives. His heart pounded in his chest as the crystal ship descended. It made no sound, just drifted down like a feather until it touched the ground. The air around it shimmered with heat or energy or something humans didn't have words for yet. A door opened in the side of the ship. The first alien to step out looked like a mantis the size of a human, but its body was covered in smooth, pearl-like armor. Its eyes were large and dark, reflecting the faces of everyone watching. Behind it came other aliens, each one different from the last. One looked almost plant-like, another seemed to be made of flowing liquid metal, and another resembled a floating jellyfish. The mantis creature stepped forward. When it spoke, its mouth didn't move, but everyone heard its voice clearly in their minds. "I am ambassador of the collective," it said. "We represent 47 species who have joined together in peace and prosperity. We travel the galaxy seeking species with potential, species who can grow and become part of something greater. We have watched humanity for some time. You are ready." "Ready for what?" Yang asked, finding his voice. "To evolve," replied. "We offer you the Convergence Protocol. It is a gift we give to all worthy species. With it, you will live for 500 years or more. Your diseases will vanish. Your minds will expand. You will be free from pain, from suffering, from the limitations that hold you back. You will join us in the galactic community, equal members in a civilization that spans thousands of worlds." The crowd murmured with excitement. Yang felt it too, that surge of hope and wonder. This was what humanity had dreamed about for centuries. Contact with aliens who came as friends, offering to lift them up. But stepped forward, her expression hard. "What's the cost?" Tilted its head. "There is no cost, this is a gift." "Everything has a cost," said. "The only requirement is acceptance," said calmly. "You must choose to undergo the Convergence Protocol willingly. We force no one. When you are ready, we will begin the process. Your bodies will be enhanced. Your minds will be connected to the galactic network. You will see and understand things you cannot imagine now." Over the following weeks, the world went crazy with excitement. They shared information about their civilization. They showed videos of beautiful cities on distant planets, of technologies that seemed like magic, of species living together in perfect harmony. No war, no hunger, no suffering. Every species that joined them became peaceful and advanced. Yang led a team of scientists to study the convergence protocol. They gave them access to laboratories on the ships, let them examine the equipment and the biological compounds. On the surface, everything looked amazing. The technology would repair damaged DNA, enhance brain function, and connect individuals to a vast network of shared knowledge. "Imagine never being sick again," one scientist said, her eyes shining. "My daughter has cancer, this could save her." "Imagine learning anything instantly," another added. "All the knowledge of 47 civilizations available to everyone." But kept asking questions that others didn't want to hear. She attended every meeting, watched every demonstration, and studied them carefully. "Have you noticed," she said to Yang one evening, "that all 47 species act the same way? They move the same, talk the same, even think the same. Watch them. The mantis creatures, the plant beings, the liquid metal ones, they're all identical in how they behave." Yang had noticed, but he'd thought it was just cultural. Maybe that's what happens when civilizations become advanced. They develop similar values. "Or maybe they're not individuals anymore," said quietly. That night Yang couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about words. The next day he requested a private meeting with. The ambassador agreed immediately. "Tell me about your species before the convergence," Yang said. "What were your people like?" Paused for a long moment. "We were different, chaotic, divided. The convergence brought us together, made us better." "But what did you lose?" "Nothing of value," said. "We lost conflict, confusion, inefficiency. We gained purpose and peace." Yang felt a chill run down his spine. The way he said it, so certain, so absolute, as if there was only one way to see the world now. "How long do we have to decide?" he asked. "Take the time you need," said. "But not too long. The galaxy is vast, and we have many other species to visit. 6 months should be sufficient for humanity to choose its future." 6 months. Half a year to make the most important decision in human history. Yang walked out of the meeting with his mind spinning. The whole world was celebrating, dreaming of a perfect future among the stars. But something felt wrong, like a word on the tip of his tongue that he couldn't quite remember. He found in her office, studying footage of the. "We need to dig deeper," he said. "Before everyone rushes into this, we need to know exactly what we're accepting." Looked up at him and nodded slowly. "Finally, I thought I was the only one who felt it." "Felt what?" "That when they look at us," said, "they don't see people they want to help. They see a problem they want to fix." Jinwoo Lee stared at the neural scan on his screen and felt his stomach drop. He had been studying the convergence protocol for 3 weeks now, examining every piece of data they provided. As one of Earth's leading neuroscientists, he understood the human brain better than almost anyone, and what he was looking at terrified him. "Run the simulation again," he told his assistant. The computer modeled what would happen to human neural pathways after the convergence protocol was applied. The results were the same as the last 50 times he'd checked. The upgrade didn't just enhance the brain, it rewrote it completely. Jinwoo picked up his phone and called Yang. "We need to talk, now." While Jinwoo was making his discovery, was halfway around the world, digging through old records. She was an independent journalist, the kind who didn't trust official stories. When everyone else was celebrating the aliens' arrival, she started asking different questions. The claim to have uplifted 47 species. Wanted to know what those species were like before the upgrade. She spent days searching through the data the aliens had shared, looking for historical records, cultural archives, anything that showed what these civilizations had been before joining the collective. What she found made her blood run cold. There were fragments, pieces of old transmissions and records that they probably didn't realize they'd included in their data dumps. One species had been warriors, proud and fierce, with hundreds of distinct cultures across their world. After convergence, all their military traditions, their battle poetry, their proud heritage gone. They were peaceful now, efficient, but utterly bland. Another species had been explorers, driven by curiosity and wanderlust. Their old records showed ships launched in every direction, crews volunteering for one-way trips just to see what was out there. After convergence, they only traveled where the collective sent them, when it was logical, when it was efficient. A third species had been artists. Their cities had been full of music, wild architecture, paintings that made no sense but somehow felt right. After convergence, their art became geometric, precise, and completely soulless. Saved every file she found and started writing her article. Jin Han had volunteered for the preliminary tests. She was young, healthy, and believed deeply that the convergence was humanity's destiny. When they asked for volunteers to undergo a partial upgrade, just enough to test compatibility, she was first in line. The procedure was painless. They put her in a crystal chamber filled with silver mist. She breathed it in and felt a tingling sensation spread through her body and into her mind. It lasted 6 hours. When she emerged, she felt different. Better, she told the doctors. I feel clearer, sharper. They ran tests. Her IQ had jumped 20 points. Her reaction time had improved. She could recall information perfectly, like her brain was now a computer. The medical team was thrilled. They sent reports to the UN showing that the upgrade worked exactly as promised. But Jin's sister noticed something else. Paint something for me, her sister asked a week after the procedure. Jin had always loved painting. Her apartment was full of canvases, wild abstracts that made visitors feel emotions they couldn't name. Jin picked up a brush and stared at the blank canvas. She knew she should paint. She remembered that she used to enjoy it, but when she tried to think of what to create, her mind was empty. Not blocked, empty. She could paint a perfect copy of something she saw, but creating something new, something that came from inside her, that ability was simply gone. I don't need to paint anymore, she told her sister. It's not efficient. I have more important things to do. Her sister left the apartment crying. Jin didn't understand why. Crying wasn't efficient either. Jinwoo presented his findings to Yang in a secure conference room. Was there too, along with a few other trusted officials. Jinwoo put up the neural scans. The convergence protocol doesn't enhance human neural pathways, he said. It replaces them. Look here. He pointed to the prefrontal cortex. This region controls impulse, emotion, creativity, individual decision-making. After convergence, it's restructured completely. The new pathways integrate with the galactic network, but the original functions are. In simple terms, asked. In simple terms, you stop being you. You become a node in their network. You can still think, but only in ways that are compatible with the collective. Anything they consider inefficient, strong emotions, irrational hopes, creative impulses, individual quirks get smoothed away. Yang felt sick. They're not offering to improve us, they're offering to erase us. And replace us with something they can control, added. This article published the next day. It went viral immediately. She had titled it, "The Species That Stopped Dreaming." In it, she presented all the evidence she'd found, 47 species that had been diverse, chaotic, and alive before convergence. 47 species that were now identical in every way that mattered. The public reaction was mixed. Many people refused to believe it. They accused of fear, of trying to deny humanity its destiny. But others started asking questions. The debate that had been one-sided suddenly had two voices. They responded with a public statement, appeared on every screen. We understand there is concern, the ambassador said. This is natural. Every species experiences doubt before convergence. But consider what you gain. The human tendency toward violence, toward irrational behavior, toward self-destruction, these things cause your suffering. We do not erase who you are. We perfect you. By removing everything that makes us human, shouted at her television, though no one was there to hear. Jin was brought in for interviews. The pro-convergence movement held her up as proof that the upgrade worked. She looked healthy, spoke clearly, and tested brilliantly. When journalists asked if she'd lost anything, she answered truthfully. "I have lost inefficiency," she said. "I have lost confusion and doubt. I have lost the tendency to waste time on activities without purpose. I am better now." Her sister watched the interview from home and cried again. The person on the screen looked like Jin, sounded like Jin, but wasn't Jin anymore. The real Jin used to laugh too loud, paint at 3 in the morning, and cry at sad movies. This new version was perfect and empty. Jinwoo managed to get a private message to Jin's sister. "Bring her to my lab," he said. "Let me run one more test." The test was simple. Jinwoo showed Jin pictures and asked her to describe what she felt. A sunset, she described the wavelengths of light. A photo of her childhood home, she listed the architectural features. A picture of her sister as a child, she noted the approximate age and the style of clothing. "Do you remember this day?" her sister asked, pointing to the photo. "We went to the beach. You built and got mad when the wave knocked it down. Then you laughed and built an even bigger one." Jin processed the question. "I remember the events. We traveled to a coastal area. I constructed a temporary structure from sand. It was destroyed by tidal forces. I constructed another." "But how did you feel?" Jin paused for a long time. "I do not understand the question. Feelings about past events are not relevant to current efficiency." Her sister turned to Jinwoo with desperate eyes. "Can you fix her? Can you reverse it?" Jinwoo checked the scans. The changes were permanent. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. That night, Yang called an emergency session of the UN Security Council. He presented all the evidence: Jinwoo's neural studies, his historical research, Jin's transformation. The room fell silent as they understood what they were facing. "We have 4 months left before they expect an answer," Yang said. "The world needs to know the truth, all of it. This isn't about advancement, it's about survival. Our survival as humans, not as something else wearing human skin." "Half the world wants this," someone argued. "They see the benefits: long life, no disease, no conflict." "They need to see the cost," said. "Show them Jin, show them what better really means." The evidence was released to the public the next morning. The world exploded into argument. Protests filled the streets on both sides. Those who still wanted convergence said the reports were fake, that scared people were trying to deny humanity's future. Those who opposed it said they were trying to commit genocide by consent. Yang stood on the balcony of the UN building and looked out at the crystal ships still hanging in the sky. They had seemed so beautiful when they arrived. Now they looked like traps waiting to spring shut. Somewhere up there was watching, waiting for humanity to make its choice. But Yang understood now that it wasn't really a choice. It was a test, and humanity had to decide whether to become something new or fight to remain who they were, flaws and all. Dongshin sat beside his son's hospital bed and held the boy's hand. Minho was only 12 years old, but the cancer was winning. The doctors said he had maybe 6 months left. Every treatment had failed. Dong had watched his bright, funny son grow weaker and quieter each day. When they arrived with their offer, Dong saw hope for the first time in 2 years. The convergence protocol would cure all diseases. It would save his son's life. Nothing else mattered. He became the leader of the pro-convergence movement almost by accident. He started speaking at rallies, sharing Minho's story, begging people to see reason. Millions of others had similar stories: sick children, dying parents, incurable conditions. They offered salvation, and Dong was going to make sure humanity didn't throw it away. "They say the upgrade changes who we are," someone challenged him at a rally. "They say it erases our humanity." "My son is dying," Dong shouted back. "They offer him life. What good is humanity if we let our children die when we could save them?" The crowd roared its approval. Half of them anyway, the other half booed. Across the city, Na was preparing for her own speech. She was a philosophy professor, someone who had spent her life studying what it meant to be human. She had read all the reports, studied all the evidence. The convergence terrified her in a way that nothing else ever had. She stood before a different crowd, one that had come to hear arguments against the upgrade. "They ask us to choose," Na said, her voice carrying across the plaza. "But what kind of choice is this? They offer us long life, but only if we stop being ourselves. They offer us perfect health, but only if we let them rewrite our minds. They ask us to trade everything we are for the promise of comfort." She paused, looking out at the thousands of faces watching her. "They call it advancement. I call it extinction. When you remove human emotion, human creativity, human irrationality, you don't have an advanced human. You have something else. Something that looks like us but isn't us. And they want us to volunteer for this. They want us to walk willingly into our own extinction." Someone in the crowd shouted, "But what about the sick? What about the dying?" "I know," Na said, and her voice was gentle now. "I know there are people suffering. I know there are parents watching their children die. I know the convergence could save them. But we have to ask ourselves, save them as what? If your child is cured but no longer remembers how to love you, have you really saved them?" The crowd was silent now, thinking. "Our flaws are not weaknesses to be fixed," Na continued. "They are part of what makes us human. We feel too much, dream too big, hope when hope is foolish. We create art that serves no purpose except beauty. We fall in love in ways that make no logical sense. We are messy and contradictory and inefficient. And that is exactly what makes us magnificent." She finished her speech with words that would be repeated 1,000,000 times in the coming months. "They offer us immortality, but they want us to die first. They will preserve our bodies while erasing our souls." The world was divided almost exactly in half. Opinion polls showed 51% in favor of convergence, 49% against. The margin was so thin that it changed daily. Wu was supposed to remain neutral. As a senior politician, he was meant to present both sides fairly and let the public decide. But he couldn't decide himself. He saw the merit in both arguments and felt paralyzed by the weight of the choice. His wife wanted the convergence. Her mother had Alzheimer's and was fatting away day by day. The upgrade would restore her mind, give her back herself. His brother opposed it. He was an artist who said he would rather die young and creative than live forever as an empty shell. "How do we choose?" Wu asked Yang during a private dinner. "How does anyone choose between survival and identity?" "Maybe that's the point," Yang said quietly. "Maybe they knew this would tear us apart. Maybe that's exactly what they want." The for their part remained patient, gave interviews, answered questions, and never showed frustration. The ambassador was always calm, always reasonable. "We understand your hesitation," said during a global broadcast. "Every species struggles with this decision, but consider the 47 civilizations that came before you. All of them chose convergence. All of them are now thriving, peaceful, and happy. Not one has ever regretted their choice." "Because you erased their ability to regret," muttered at her screen. The deadline was approaching. 3 months left, then 2. The debates grew more heated. Families stopped speaking to each other. Friendships ended. Violence broke out at rallies when opposing groups met. Dong grew more desperate. Min Ho was getting worse. The doctors said he might not last until the deadline. In desperation, Dong made a deal with They agreed to give Min Ho an early convergence, just him, as a humanitarian gesture. The procedure took place in secret. Min Ho was carried into a crystal chamber, barely conscious, his small body ravaged by disease. 6 hours later, he walked out on his own. The cancer was gone. His body was healthy again. Dong cried with relief and hugged his son. But Min Ho didn't hug back. "Father," the boy said. His voice was the same, but something in it was different, flat. "Thank you for choosing this treatment. It was the logical decision." "Min Ho, are you okay?" I am functioning optimally, his son replied. The cancer has been eliminated. All systems are operating at full efficiency. Dong pulled back and looked at his son's face. Minho looked healthy, but his eyes were different. They were calm, calculating, empty of the spark that had made him Minho. Do you know who I am? Dong asked, his voice shaking. You are Dong Xin, my biological father. You made the decision to allow my convergence. This was beneficial to my survival. But do you love me? Minho tilted his head, processing. Love is an inefficient emotional response that served evolutionary purposes in pre-convergence humans. It is no longer necessary. However, I recognize our biological relationship and will maintain appropriate social protocols with you. Dong felt his heart break. His son was alive, healthy, standing right in front of him. But Minho was gone. The boy who had loved dinosaurs and told terrible jokes and cried at sad movies had been erased. In his place stood this perfect, empty stranger. The news leaked within days. Someone had filmed Minho leaving the hospital, and the video went viral. People saw the healthy boy with the dead eyes, heard his flat voice in the interview footage. The pro-convergence movement fractured. Thousands of supporters switched sides overnight. Dong appeared at one of Nuss' rallies. He walked onto the stage without invitation, and the crowd went silent. Everyone knew who he was, knew what had happened. I was wrong, he said into the microphone. His voice broke. I thought I was saving my son, but I killed him. He's alive, but he's not. He's not him anymore, and I did that. I chose that. He looked out at the crowd with tears streaming down his face. Don't make my mistake. Don't let fear make you give up everything that matters. My son is alive, but I would give anything, to have the real him back, even if only for one more day. The crowd was silent. Then someone started clapping. Others joined. Soon the entire plaza was applauding, not in celebration but in solidarity with his grief. Wu watched the speech from his office. He had been sitting on the fence for months, unable to decide. But seeing Dong's broken expression, hearing the emptiness in Minho's voice in the earlier footage, something clicked into place. He picked up his phone and called the other undecided politicians. I'm voting no, he said. We can't accept this. We just can't. The polls shifted dramatically. Within a week, opposition to convergence had jumped to 63%. The noticed. Requested another meeting with Earth's leaders. The ambassador's tone was still polite, but there was something underneath it now. Tension? Frustration? It was hard to tell with an alien face. You are making an error, said. One child's difficult adjustment does not represent the full picture. Convergence brings benefits that far outweigh the transition period. It's not a transition, Yang said. It's a transformation. You turn us into something else. We improve you. According to your definition of improvement, said, not ours. Stood silent for a moment. When the ambassador spoke again, the reasonable tone was gone. We have offered you a place among the great civilizations of the galaxy. We have offered you peace, prosperity, and advancement beyond your dreams. If you refuse, you will remain alone, primitive, isolated. The galaxy will move forward without you. Then it moves forward without us, Na said. She had been invited to the meeting as a representative of the opposition movement. We would rather be alone and human than connected and empty. You don't understand what you're giving up, said. We understand perfectly, Yang replied. You're the ones who don't understand what you're asking us to give up. The meeting ended badly. They gave humanity one final deadline, 1 month to make a final decision. The vote would be binding. If humanity chose yes, the convergence would begin. If they chose no, they would leave and never return. Across the world, people prepared to cast the most important vote in human history. Dong sat with his son each night, trying to find any trace of the boy he had been. There was nothing. Minho was polite, efficient, and utterly alien. Na gave speech after speech, her voice growing hoarse. Wu worked behind the scenes, convincing others to vote no. And Yang worked with Jin Wu, and gathering every piece of evidence they could find, making sure people understood exactly what they were voting for. The choice was clear now: survival or identity, comfort or freedom, perfection or humanity. The vote was scheduled for 30 days from now. One Bei had been in space longer than most people her age. As a veteran spacewoman, she had spent 15 years traveling between Earth's orbital stations and the few colonies humanity had managed to establish on Mars and the Moon. She knew the darkness between worlds better than she knew city streets. When they arrived, she was stationed on a supply ship near Jupiter. The company she worked for got a strange contract to deliver supplies to an abandoned research station on one of the outer colonies. The station had been empty for 5 years, but suddenly someone wanted it restocked. One didn't ask questions, she just flew the ship. The colony was on a moon orbiting a gas giant in a neighboring star system. Humans had tried to establish a research base there 8 years ago, but something went wrong. The entire crew vanished and the project was shut down. No one talked about it much. When one landed, she expected to find the station empty. Instead, she found evidence of alien presence. Not the something else. Equipment left behind, inscriptions on the walls in a language that wasn't human but also wasn't. She took pictures of everything and sent them back to Earth. Within hours, Yang was on a secure call with her. "That language," he said, his face tense on the screen. "We've seen it before. In some of the old data they shared. It belongs to one of the species they supposedly uplifted." "Why would they be here?" one asked. "On an abandoned human colony." "That's what we need to find out." One spent 3 days exploring the station. What she found made her sick. The species that had been here they had been running. The inscriptions on the walls were desperate messages, warnings. One message, translated by the computer, read, "They said we would be better. They said we would be happy. But happiness without choice is not happiness. It is sleep." Another said, "We were artists, we were dreamers, we were alive. Now we are tools." The final message, scratched into a wall as if by something sharp: "Do not accept, do not accept, do not accept." One downloaded everything she could find and headed back to Earth. The journey took weeks, but she pushed the ship as hard as she could. The evidence she carried could change everything. While one was traveling home, Sung-min was working on a different kind of discovery. He was a hacker, one of the best in the world, though he'd never admit it publicly. When they arrived, he saw opportunity. Alien technology meant alien networks, and networks could be infiltrated. It took him 2 months to find a way in. The security was good, but it wasn't perfect. Sung-min found a back door through one of the communication channels they used to broadcast to Earth. Once inside, he started copying everything he could find. Most of it was encrypted in ways he couldn't break, but some files were accessible, and what he found confirmed his worst suspicions. The communications between their ships weren't the peaceful, patient messages they shared with humanity. They were calculating and cold. One message read, "Humanity demonstrates concerning levels of chaos and unpredictability. Standard convergence protocols may be insufficient. Recommend enhanced integration procedures." Another, "The species shows dangerous tendency toward individualism and irrational behavior. Full network integration is essential for containment." Containment, not partnership, not cooperation, containment. Sung-min kept digging. He found casualty projections for species that refused convergence. He found quarantine protocols. He found battle plans. They had conquered species before. Not many, but enough. Any species that proved too resistant to convergence, too dangerous to leave alone, was dealt with, either through economic isolation that strangled their development or through direct military action when necessary. Humanity was being evaluated as a potential threat. Sung Min encrypted everything and sent it to Yang, and every major news outlet he could think of. Then he wiped his equipment and disappeared. They would know someone had hacked them, but they wouldn't be able to prove who. The revelations hit the news the same day one returned to Earth. The combination of evidence from the abandoned colony and the intercepted communications created a firestorm. Moon was Earth's top diplomat, someone who had been trying to maintain peaceful relations with the despite everything. When she saw the evidence, she made a decision that would end her career but might save her species. She used her diplomatic credentials to reach out to other alien species, not the ones in the collective, but the ones mentioned in one's discovery, the ones who had run. It took weeks of careful, secret communication. Many species didn't respond. They were too afraid of or they no longer existed. But a few answered. They were refugees scattered across the galaxy, hiding in the dark spaces between stars. One species agreed to testify. They sent a representative through a hidden route, arriving at Earth in a damaged ship that barely held together. The alien looked like a cross between a bird and a reptile, with iridescent feathers and intelligent eyes. "We were like you once," the alien said through a translator. Its voice was sad. "We thought they were offering us a gift. By the time we understood the truth, half our population had already convergence. We had a civil war. Those who remained themselves fled. Those who had been converted hunted us." "How many of you are left?" asked. "Maybe 10,000 out of billions. We hide now. We survive in the shadows. They want every species to join them or disappear. There is no third option in their minds." The alien's testimony was broadcast worldwide. People watched as it described its civilization before convergence, a culture of explorers and philosophers, artists and engineers. Then it described what happened after, the slow erosion of identity, the loss of everything that had made them who they were. "The worst part," the alien said, "is that those who converted don't know they've lost anything. They look at us, the refugees, and they pity us. They think we're the ones who are broken. They can't understand that we're the only ones who are still whole." The final vote was 2 weeks away. The polls had shifted dramatically. Only 33% of humanity still supported convergence, but they weren't giving up. Made one last broadcast. The ambassador appeared on every screen, and for the first time the alien seemed almost emotional. Angry, maybe, or frustrated. "You have seen the fear and lies spread by those who oppose progress," said. "You have listened to the testimony of failures, of species too weak to accept advancement. But consider the majority. 47 thriving civilizations who chose wisdom over fear." The ambassador paused. "We have been patient with you. We have answered your questions and tolerated your suspicions. But patience has limits. You have 2 weeks to make your final decision. If you choose to reject our gift, you will be choosing isolation. No trade with galactic civilizations. No access to advanced technology. No defense if hostile species target you. You will be alone in a dangerous universe." "Is that a threat?" asked during the live broadcast. She was part of the panel interviewing. "It is a statement of reality," the ambassador replied. "The galaxy is vast and filled with dangers you cannot imagine. Without the collective's protection, humanity will be vulnerable. We offer safety. We offer advancement. But we cannot force you to accept wisdom." Yang stood up from his seat on the panel. "You call it wisdom. We call it extinction. You want us to choose between being safe and being human. That's not a choice. That's a hostage situation." "You misunderstand." "No," Yang interrupted. "We understand perfectly now. You came here saying you wanted to help us, but the truth is you fear us. You fear our chaos, our unpredictability, our creativity. You want to control us before we become a threat. That's what this has always been about." The broadcast ended abruptly. They stopped communicating with Earth's governments. The crystal ships remained in orbit, silent and waiting. One sung Min and met with Yang and in a secure room. They had all the evidence now. The abandoned colonies, the intercepted communications, the refugee testimonies. Together, they had exposed the truth about the. We have enough to convince people to vote no, said. The question is what happens after. They'll isolate us, Sung Min said. Cut us off from any galactic contact. Or worse, one added. Those battle plans I found, they're prepared to use force if they consider a species dangerous enough. Then we need to be ready, said. She had been quiet most of the meeting, but now she spoke with certainty. If they come back with weapons instead of gifts, we need to be able to defend ourselves. We have 2 weeks, Yang said. 2 weeks to convince the world to vote no, and 2 weeks to prepare for whatever comes next. The final campaigns began. Both sides made their last arguments. The pro-convergence movement, now much smaller, focused on the benefits, the cure for all diseases, the end of suffering, the promise of peace. The opposition focused on identity, on humanity, on the right to remain flawed and free. Na gave her final speech to a crowd of millions. Her voice was tired but strong. They're right about one thing, she said. We are chaotic, we are inefficient, we make mistakes and feel too much and dream impossible dreams. But those aren't weaknesses. Those are the things that make us human. Those are the things worth fighting for. She looked up at the crystal ships hanging in the sky. We have a choice to make, not between survival and extinction, but between existing and living. I choose to live. I choose to remain human with all the mess and pain and beauty that comes with it. I choose us. The crowd roared its approval. All across the world, people were making the same choice. The vote was 1 week away. 50 years had passed since the vote. 50 years since humanity chose to remain human. Park stood on the bridge of the Wanderer, humanity's first deep space exploration vessel. He was the grandson of Park, the woman who had first suspected this true intentions. He had grown up hearing stories about those tense months when the world nearly gave away its soul. Captain, his communications officer called. We're receiving a signal from the colony ahead. Put it through. The screen flickered to life, showing a face that was definitely not human. The alien had 4 eyes and skin that shimmered like oil on water, but it was smiling, or doing something that looked like a smile. Human ship, the alien said, speaking through a translator. We have been waiting for you. Welcome to our world. Smiled back. This was why he did this job. First contact with new species, building relationships based on respect rather than forced conformity. In the 50 years since humanity rejected convergence, they had made contact with 17 different species. Some were refugees from like this one. Others were independent civilizations who had never encountered the collective. We're honored to meet you, said. We bring greetings from Earth and an offer of friendship, not conversion. The alien's smile widened. We know, that is why we called you. Beside, Jin Li worked on the ship's navigation systems. She was the daughter of Jinwoo Li, the neuroscientist who had first discovered what the convergence really did to the brain. Like her father, she was brilliant with technology, but she had taken a different path. Instead of studying biology, she had become an engineer. The technology on the Wanderer was a testament to humanity's independent development. They hadn't gotten everything from but they had taken the principles and built their own version. Faster-than-light travel that worked differently from the collective's method. Weapons that could defend against both physical and neural attacks. Communication systems that couldn't be hacked by the network. Most importantly, they had developed it all while remaining themselves. Human creativity, with all its chaos and intuition, had produced innovations the never expected. We're ready to land, Jin announced. All systems optimal. They descended to the planet's surface and were greeted by a delegation of the aliens. The creatures called themselves the Hen, and they had been hiding from for 3 generations. Their leader, an elderly hen with silver-tinted skin, approached with obvious emotion. When we first fled from the collective, the elder said. "We thought we were alone. We thought we were the only ones foolish enough to refuse their gift. Then we heard about humanity, about the species that said no and survived. You gave us hope." "We gave ourselves hope," said. "Just like you did, we chose to remain who we are." Over the next few weeks, the Wanderer's crew helped the hen establish better defensive systems and communication networks. In return, the hen shared their knowledge of the local star systems and introduced humanity to two other refugee species. This was the new galaxy humanity was building, not one based on forced unity but on voluntary cooperation. Different species working together while remaining distinct. It was messier than the way, slower, more complicated, but it was real. Back on Earth, things had changed dramatically in 50 years. They had kept their word about isolation. They refused all trade with humanity, blocked access to collective technology, and warned other species to avoid contact with the primitives who chose regression. But humanity had survived. They had to work harder, develop everything themselves, face dangers without the collective's protection. But they had done it, and more than that, they had thrived. The separation from galactic trade had forced innovation. Human scientists had made breakthrough after breakthrough, driven by necessity and that chaotic, irrational creativity that had wanted to erase. They had extended human to 150 years through genetics, not through convergence. They had cured most diseases. They had developed AI that worked with humans, not by replacing human thought but by complementing it. And they had discovered something the never expected. All that emotion, all that inefficiency that the collective wanted to eliminate, it was actually humanity's greatest strength. Human artists were creating works that resonated across species lines. Refugee aliens who had fled the collective would watch human movies, listen to human music, read human books, and weep. They had forgotten what it felt like to be moved by art. Humanity reminded them. Human scientists approached problems in ways the collective never considered. They followed hunches, made intuitive leaps, dreamed up solutions that didn't follow logical paths but worked anyway. Several refugee species had adopted human research methods and made their own breakthroughs. Humanity's chaos was spreading through the galaxy, not by force but by example. The Coalition of the Unaltered was officially formed 30 years after the vote. It started with just 3 species, humans, the hen, and another refugee group called the owl. Now it included 22 different civilizations, all committed to remaining distinct while cooperating freely. The coalition was everything the collective wasn't: messy, argumentative, full of disagreements and different viewpoints, but it was alive in a way the collective could never be. And that terrified The collective had remained stagnant for 10,000 years. Their last major innovation had been the convergence protocol itself. Since then, they had spread it to new species, absorbed them into the network, but they hadn't created anything truly new. How could they? Innovation required risk, intuition, the willingness to try things that might fail. The collective had eliminated all of those things. Meanwhile, humanity and their coalition partners were advancing rapidly. They were younger, smaller, weaker in many ways, but they were moving forward while the collective stood still. Was in the middle of establishing a new trade route when the message came. It was from the same ambassador who had come to Earth 50 years ago. "Captain Park," the message began, "I request a meeting, not as an official representative of the collective but as an individual." Was suspicious but curious. He agreed to meet on a neutral station. When he arrived, he brought gin and a security detail. Looked the same as in the old recordings, but something was different. The ambassador moved with less certainty, spoke with less of that calm, collective assurance. "Thank you for meeting with me," said. "I know you have no reason to trust me." "You're right," said. "We don't. 50 years ago, I told your people they were making a mistake. I believed it then. I was certain that convergence was the path to perfection, that your refusal was foolishness. Paused. I have spent 50 years watching you prove me wrong. Waited. The ambassador seemed to be struggling with something. The collective is dying, finally said. Not physically, but in every way that matters. We have not created a new work of art in 8,000 years. Our scientists study the universe but make no breakthroughs. We exist, we are efficient, we are peaceful, but we are not alive. You tried to make us the same way, said without sympathy. Yes, because we feared what you were. Chaotic, unpredictable, dangerous. We thought the only way to have peace was to eliminate difference. Looked directly at. We were wrong, and now we are paying the price for that mistake. Why are you telling me this? Because there are some of us who want to change. Not many, but enough. We look at humanity, at your coalition, at what you have built, and we feel something we have not felt in. Envy. Longing. The desire to be more than what we are. Stepped closer. Can it be reversed? The convergence. Can we become individuals again? Jin spoke up for the first time. I don't know. My father spent years studying convergence. The neural changes are extensive. It might be possible to partially reverse them, but you would never be exactly what you were before. We would be something, though, said. Something more than what we are now. Considered this. Part of him wanted to refuse to let them suffer the consequences of their actions. But that wasn't the human way, was it? Humans felt compassion even for their enemies. Humans believed in second chances. It was inefficient, illogical, and completely human. We'll help, said. Not because you deserve it, but because it's the right thing to do. But understand this, we won't make you like us. We'll help you find your way back to yourselves, whoever that turns out to be. Made a gesture that might have been gratitude. That is all we ask. The news spread quickly. Or at least a faction of them, wanted help undoing the convergence. It was controversial. Many in the coalition argued against it. Why help the species that had tried to erase humanity? But others, including Nasong in her final years, argued for compassion. We rejected convergence because we believe every species has the right to be themselves, the old philosopher said in her last public speech. Even they deserve that right, especially because they forgot it. The process began slowly. Jin led a team of human and alien scientists working to reverse the convergence effects. It was difficult, dangerous, and didn't always work. Some who underwent the reversal couldn't handle the sudden rush of emotions and individual thought after of collective existence. But some succeeded. The first fully reversed was a young scientist who had always felt something was missing, but couldn't name what. After the reversal, they spent 3 days crying. Then they painted their first picture, a chaotic swirl of colors that didn't represent anything logical but felt true. I didn't know I could feel this much, they said, staring at the painting. It hurts, everything hurts, but it's real. Finally, it's real. More requested reversal. Not all of them, not even most. The majority of the collective still believed in convergence, still thought emotions and individuality were inefficiencies to be eliminated. But a growing minority wanted to remember how to dream. They called themselves the Awakened. They formed their own settlements, separate from the collective, learning how to be individuals again. It was messy and difficult and often painful, but they were alive in a way they hadn't been for thousands of years. Stood on Earth, looking up at the sky where the ships used to hang. They were long gone now, but humanity's own ships filled the orbital space. Ships heading out to explore, to trade, to meet new species and build new relationships. Jin joined him, carrying her young daughter. Your great-great-grandmother would be proud, said. All of them would. They chose to stay human, and because of that choice, we're changing the galaxy. Do you think we made the right choice? Jin asked. 50 years ago, I mean. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had accepted? Thought about it. We would have survived. We would have been peaceful and efficient and lived forever. But we wouldn't have been us. We wouldn't have created coalition. We wouldn't be helping the awakened learn to feel again. We wouldn't be spreading art and music and chaos across the stars. He looked at Jin's daughter, who was trying to catch a butterfly, laughing when it flew away. "They offered us perfection," said. "We chose humanity instead. Messy, inefficient, emotional, creative humanity, and that made all the difference." Somewhere in orbit, a young awakened named was learning to play human music. The notes came out wrong, discordant and clumsy, but kept trying, kept practicing, kept failing and trying again. In the collective, failure was unacceptable. But here, in this new galaxy that humanity was building, failure was how you learned. Mistakes were how you grew. Inefficiency was the price of creativity. Played a wrong note and laughed. It was the first time in 10,000 years I had laughed at their own mistake. The sound was strange and wonderful and completely imperfect. And that was exactly right. The galaxy didn't need perfect beings who never made mistakes, who never felt too much or dreamed impossible dreams. It needed humans. It needed Hen and Al and Awakened and all the other species learning to be themselves. It needed the messy, beautiful chaos of life actually lived, not merely optimized. 50 years ago, humanity had made a choice. They chose to remain who they were, flaws and all. Now the whole galaxy was better for it. They had tried to advance humanity. Humanity had rejected the upgrade. And in doing so, they had advanced the entire galaxy in ways the collective never could have imagined.